Alright, this is Erin Somerville at McCallum High School, and I'm going over the bureaucracy. I'm continuing on. You should have already looked at the organization of government, which included the three branches, and now you saw the many agencies and departments underneath the president and the executive branch. So now we're looking closely at the bureaucracy. Our main question is, why is it called the fourth bureaucracy? Why is it called the fourth branch? But what we're trying to also understand is how the bureaucracy functions within. And if we can understand how it functions within, then we'll better be able to understand its power in the whole structure and then its relationship with the other three branches. So you have kind of a funny cartoon to kick it off. Because bureaucracy, when you've heard the word probably thus far in your life, if you've started to get an understanding of what it is or heard it used, it tends to be used almost like a bad word, okay, like a four-letter word here. And we're going to see how it's the bureaucracy, the many bureaucracies that exist in your life are very effective, completely needed, but so many of them also have flaws in a way that most people tend to get frustrated with the negative aspects of bureaucracy, often, skipping over the very positive effects as well. So pause and read this cartoon. And what you should see here, the funny part, is that four people are all getting involved to do what would be a one-person job. And so this is getting at the aspect of a bureaucracy in which there's specialization. To be efficient in getting something done, specialization is often used. This is, going back to the assembly line. In a factory, everybody does a particular job to get a whole lot through quickly and hopefully with some quality control. And that's an important aspect of all bureaucracy so that things are consistent. But this can be frustrating when you think that there's over-specialization and that there's become inefficiencies in the system that was supposed to be efficient. So, okay. The bureaucracy, it is technically in the executive branch. It is not mentioned in the Constitution. And we're going to see today how it works and how it is very powerful and almost acts as a fourth branch in our system. So here's your definition. The bureaucracy is a system of administrative departments, and they're going to carry out the work of the government. And building off the last cartoon you saw, when you have a system of administrative departments, each doing its own thing, you might see that there's a lot of doors that you have to knock on in order to get things done from your viewpoint as a citizen. But this system of administrative departments is a way to organize a big body of work in an efficient way, even if it doesn't feel so efficient on your side. And to be truthful, it's not always that efficient. So this word, bureaucracy, a little bit about the etymology here. Bureau is like a dresser full of drawers. Cracy is a form of government, like aristocracy, democracy. So this word really means that the system, the organizing system governs. And so we've used that term here, bureaucracy. And then if you look at like Latin or French, bureau means office. So it's kind of like the offices govern. And that might help you to understand the overall term. So the people, who are the people working in the bureaucracy? They are hired. They are unelected officials. They are carrying out the work of the government and they are unelected. We call them civil servants or public servants. What that tells us is that they draw their salary from tax dollars and that they are qualified. They're carrying out the work of the government and that they're qualified. Generally, if you're a civil servant, you've passed some sort of civil service exam or you have some sort of civil service, you have some sort of licensing or certification to show that you are qualified. But down here, when you look at the breakdown, what I'm hoping you see is that your bureaucrats that actually work in government implementing the law, they are more diverse than, say, the folks in our representative branch, Congress. You have a closer, even split between men and women, whereas you look at Congress, the body that is supposed to represent us is predominantly male. Your education, too, is quite diverse. There are a lot of non-college graduates that are still qualified to carry out the work of the government. And race and ethnicity, I know at first you might go, oh, 67% white, but I want to remind you that this is still a predominantly white country. So minority representation is underrepresented, but not by as much as, say, you would see in Congress. So keep in mind, these are unelected people, but if we look at their characteristics, we might argue that they are more representative, that the people who work in these offices implementing the laws for us are in some ways more representative than those folks in Congress. So to reiterate, unelected. Now the top level ones, the ones that I'll reference the most, those top level bureaucrats are appointed by the president. So secretaries of cabinet departments or directors of independent agencies. The president nominates them, the Senate confirms them. But the middle and lower level, those folks are hired, and they're hired according to the civil service, so they've shown that they're qualified. And we do that to make sure that those working in government are hired based on merit. In the past, presidents have used the ability to give jobs to those who have been helpful, who have been politically supportive of the president. They're not always qualified. So this is to prevent a spoil system where a president can sort of pass out jobs as rewards for support. And if we think about previous presidents like Jackson giving out jobs for their political support, those are called patronage jobs. And the civil service system is to make sure that it's not through nepotism or corruption that people working in government are working, because they have merit, because they're qualified to do the work of the government. So how do bureaucracies do their job? There's kind of 4 ingredients to all bureaucracies. You need an agency. You need a name. So when a law is passed and it's up to the president to enforce the law, he's got to figure out, okay, what agency am I going to call on to actually enforce that law? So the Affordable Care Act passed in 2010, known as Obamacare. A few departments actually handle the work involved in implementing that law, but one of the main ones would be the Department of Health and Human Services. They're going to help carry out the Affordable Care Act. And if there's no agency, then you might need to create an agency for that law. So, for example, in 1935, when the Social Security Act is passed, in order to actually implement the Social Security Act, the Social Security Administration was established. Every agency then is going to have specific rules around how to do that job, how to carry out that law. And those rules kind of go hand in hand with specialization. So who in the agency is going to do what according to these rules to deliver that policy? And finally, resources. I keep this broad. I mean, broadly we're speaking money, but you want to keep in mind that different agencies are going to need different things. So the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, they're going to need access to a lot of laboratory equipment. They're going to need to hire doctors and nurses. They're going to maybe need database support to keep track and sort of be able to intelligently track disease so as to limit it. And then the IRS is going to need a whole bunch of other materials. And schools are going to need desks and textbooks and classrooms and cafeteria staff. So every agency is going to need different resources. At the end of the day, they're going to need money for that. Who gives them the money? That's right, Congress. They have the power of the purse. So most people in a bureaucracy, the sort of the negative side of it, is when you're in a large bureaucracy, the bureaucracy treats you like a number because they have to shuffle you through, and you can get lost in that shuffle. But the numbers are really important. So if you feel like a number, yes, I'm sorry. But some of you don't have totally unique names. In fact, many of you have a name that someone else in the world has. And the nice thing about a number is it's totally unique, and it can be made that way. And it's infinite, too. So you in the bureaucracy might feel like a number, and that can be frustrating. But by making you a number, we can treat you as equally as possible because we just go according to the numbers. In essence, when you go into a restaurant, a fast food restaurant, and you order, they give you a number. So your food comes out in the order that it was received. So you don't walk in and they go, oh, Ms. Somerville, right this way, we'll get your cheeseburger before everyone else's. So the numbers help things to be equal and prevent mistake, if there's people with the same name. And your numbers that you have so far, you have a Social Security number, you have a student ID number, you may have a driver's license number. If you're working, you might have some sort of employee number. And then in college, you might have another student ID number. So what I'm saying is get used to it. You'll have numbers, whether it's your insurance policy. When you call up your insurance agent because you've been in a car accident, they're going to want to know your policy number. And that is just efficient for all of those bureaucracies. And when you enter into a bureaucracy, they're going to tell you about the rules. So if you're walking into the Department of Public Safety here in Texas because you want a driver's license, they're going to make sure that you're following all the rules and procedures, that you have to bring all of these documents in. You're going to have to pass the driver's test. You should have passed a written test. You're going to have to show that you have vision. And that can get frustrating for you if you forgot one document and you feel like it's an overly robust system to make sure that you get a driver's license. And so a lot of this work falls on you. The bureaucracy looks at you and says, well, you got to get X, Y, and Z together before we deliver this benefit back to you. Now, I'm going to be talking from here on out mostly about public bureaucracies, and I have been really so far. But I want to remind you that bureaucracies are both public and private. The Department of Public Safety delivers you the benefit of safe roads. McDonald's delivers you the benefit of fast food. But they work very differently and very similarly. So things they have in common is specialization. When you go into McDonald's, you know who you order your cheeseburger with. You're not going to holler back to the folks in the back cooking it and tell them you want it medium rare with extra pickles. You're also not going to ask the person sweeping the lobby for your cheeseburger. You know, you go, you wait in the line, you make your order, you pay your money, you step to the side, and the person who takes your order doesn't make your cheeseburger. That would not be efficient. They are on the register. They do register tasks. Someone else is making the burger. Someone else is doing the drive-thru. Someone else is getting the fries. At DPS, it's pretty much the same thing. Every person has certain things that they do in the agency to deliver the benefit. A public bureaucracy is going to be paid for with tax dollars. A private bureaucracy is going to be paid for by the users. And so we're going to really be focusing on public bureaucracies and how those function. But I want to remind you there are private ones. Some common differences. Most people would cite that private bureaucracies can be more efficient. That's a reasonable conclusion. They can be more efficient, mostly because they're not bound by so many rules and so many procedures. And people in power in those private bureaucracies, so managers, owners, they're going to have more discretion, more ability to change salaries, to give promotions, to change the rules for how it works. Whereas a public bureaucracy is really going to be confined to a lot more regulation and limited in how it can make changes within its own organization. So now I'm going to go through how this school is a bureaucracy in the next part of the lecture. So stop here, we'll resume with the next part.